Welcome back, students. I am your SST teacher Vandana Joshi and you are watching SST Zone. Students, in our today's video, we are going to study a new chapter which is Women, Caste and Reforms. This chapter is about the discrimination in the past with the women's and the lower caste. Here we will study that how it was in practice and it has been reformed and who were the reformers. So for that we will study few topics. Our topics under this chapter will be the introduction of the evils which were practiced in the past time. Our second topic will be the working towards the changes, in which we will study the different reformers who has done work for the improving the condition of women. And our third topic will be the caste and social reforms, in which we will see the caste-wise discrimination and the reformers who has done the work against the caste-wise discrimination. So let's start our today's chapter with the introduction of the chapter. Here we will see what was the condition of women during the old time. In the 18th century, a number of social evils existed in India. The poor condition of women, untouchability was in practice in our Indian society. During the medieval period and the early modern period, the status of women was very low, means the condition of women was very critical during the medieval time and during the British era. Several evil were practices during that time like child marriage, sati, female infanticide, parda system and the polygamy. These were some evil practices which were practiced during the early medieval or we can say the British era. During the past time, the women were denied opportunity to acquire knowledge, the property and the social status. We can say the women were not educated. Generally, the women, those were belonging from the middle class or the lower caste or the upper middle class, they were not educated. Only the high class women were only educated during that time. And that was also in their home only. They were not supposed to go to school to get the education. And they were not having any right to take a part in the property, or they were not having any social status. So, what were the evils during that time? What were the main evils during that time? And what were the reforms which were improved the condition of the women? So, let's see the evils during that time through which the women were suffering that time. First of all, we will talk about the most critical evil during that time, and that was the sati pratha. So, in the 19th century, the sati was very common and most inhuman custom which was practiced during that time, in which women were required to burn themselves on the funeral pyre of their husband. Women who did it willingly were considered as the sacred and were rewarded as sati. But the women, those were objected in that they were forcibly pushed onto the burning pyre. This inhuman practice was tried to be glorified at time. Means if the women will do it willingly, so that they will get a kind of title as sati, a kind of a diti. But if they will not do it, so they will get a kind of inhuman, or they were forcefully sent to that pyre to last them burn alive. Practice of sati was more present in Bengal, means it was mostly practiced in the Bengal. In 1828, more than 450 incidents of sati were recorded, but the British did not interfere in this matter as they considered it as a religious matter of the particular religion. So the British were not interpreting in that, and that many evils were also there, and apart from sati. So in that second we can take the child marriage, in which the childs were getting married in the early age. Custom of child marriage that denied girl children to have pleasure of childhood. They can't enjoy their childhood because they were getting married in the early age at the 5, 6, 7, 8. Often the girls who were married to much older men were widowed in early age. Thus, they could not get the opportunity for mental development. Secondly, they would become mothers at a very early age, which was very harmful for their health and physical development, as well as for the health of the child. Many social reformers advocated the abolition of child marriage. Due to their immense effort, the British government passed an Act of Age of Consent Act in 1891, in which the marriage age of the girl child was 12 years. After a few years, in 1929, another act, the Sharda Act or Child Marriage Restraint Act, was passed that raised the marriageable age of girl to 14 years and boys to 18 years. So it was a little bit change in the child marriage, in which the age of the child marriage was increased a little bit. Another evil during that time was widowhood. Early marriage, and that too with men of much older age, that resulted in their becoming widows at early age, and widowhood was considered inauspicious for the women. They were not permitted to attend the religious ceremonies as their presence was considered a bad omen. So the widowhood was also too much bad for the women. Polygamy, that was also in practice, in which the men were allowed to marry multiple spouses. From the early 19th century, few reformers started changes toward those evils. So let's see who were the reformers and what were the changes done by them. So the famous reformer during that time were Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, Ishwar Chand Vidyasagar, and Pandita Ramabai. So here we will see how they reformed these bad evils. So first of all, we will talk about Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was one of the first reformer of India, a rationalist and a reformist leader born in a conservative Brahmin family in Bengal. He played a very important role in the abolition of sati system in 1829 with the help of the Governor General William Bentinck. He set up a social organization in Calcutta in 1828. This organization was called Brahma Samaj. Brahma Samaj believed in one God. It believed in the uplift of women. He favored educating women and giving them the right to inherit property. The second reformer was Swami Dayanand Saraswati. Swami Dayanand Saraswati was outstanding personality of modern India. He founded Arya Samaja in 1875 for the upliftment of Hindu society. He favored emancipation of women. He opposed customs of sati and child marriage and supported widow remarriage. He established Kanya Gurukuls for educating women. A large number of Dayanand Anglo-Vedic means DAV schools and colleges were opened with imparted education on modern lines without losing sight of Indian culture. Another reformer was Ishwarchand Vidyasagar. Ishwarchand Vidyasagar was a great scholar, reformer, rationalist, and humanist. He was a staunch supporter of women's education. He helped drink water Bethune to establish the Bethune School, the first Indian school for girls in 1849. In this capacity of the inspector of schools, he set up 35 schools for girls. He was totally against caste system and worked towards its abolition. His greatest contribution was to cause of widows' uplift. His efforts were appreciated by Governor General Lord Dalhousie. The Widow Remarriage Act 1856 was brought about by the uprising efforts of Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. He was the inspiration behind the first lawful Hindu widow remarriage on 7 December 1856. Apart from these reformers, one female reformer was also there during the past time. She was Pandita Ramabai, belonging from the high caste family. She was a great scholar of Sanskrit. She tried to change many things in India. She also wrote many popular books. In 1889, she has opened her Sharda Sadan in Mumbai for the girls and also founded Arya Mahila Samaj to serve the causes of women. Students, not only the women's. There were many untouchables and the lower caste people. Those were denied from the mainstream society. So how they reformed and their condition was came into the mainstream society, that we will study in our next part of this chapter in next video. So for that, keep watching SST June. Here are some important dates and events from the chapter Women, Caste and Reforms.